Hello, everyone. Or should I say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Kat, and as you can see, I'm a training manager here at UX Academy. And we would like to thank you all for joining us today on this presentation. What I would like to hear is where you people are watching us from. Please drop a message in the chat and let us know where you're watching us from, what city, what country. We would really like to know. Here on the screen, you can see our agenda for today. Just want to inform you, make sure to stay until the end of this session, and we will going to review some of your questions. You can start with the questions right now at the comment section, and I will make sure to read them after the presentation is done. And I see we already have some people watching us, and people from London. Hello, London. Thank you so much. People from Sweden. Hi. Hello. It is so great to see having people from all around the world. And before we go to the main part of this presentation, I would like to tell you a bit about UX Academy. We are a London-based training company, and we run online live evening UX design courses. As you can see, we started as a classroom running classes at Central London. And like everyone else, we switched from classroom to Zoom. And now we run online live evening training, online UX design courses. As you can see, one teacher and 12 students. Hello, I see people joining. I'm so happy to see you all. Hello, Switzerland. Hello, Ukraine. Oh, wow, we have people from Ethiopia. Nice to see you all. Also, I wanted to mention is that we've been around for over 4 years and we taught over thousands of students. One thing to mention is our students are coming from all around the world, just like you watching us, and we taught students from many different companies. If you join our courses, these will be the tools you'll be using. You will use Slack to communicate with each other. You will have 3 different channels. One would be with the entire group, one with your team, and the third one is the most interesting, and it is the group with the client. Here you will be working on a real client project, and you will communicate directly with the client for any questions or any ideas. Also, you will use Figma and FigJam, which are the standard industry tools for prototyping. And both of these tools are accessible on PC and Mac. And once you sign up for our course, we will provide you with the credentials and set up the account, and you don't need to pay for anything regarding that. Also, everything is stored in the Google Drive, so all slides, all our recordings of the course will be available at any time. Hello, wow, it is so great to see people from really all around the world. Hello, Kenya. Hello, Turkey. So nice. Also, what I want to mention, this is very, very important about us. Mentorship is a very neat point about UX Academy. Every week you have 30 minutes of team mentorship with the expert in the UX industry. You can ask any questions regarding anything regarding the project, regarding the advices on the future career, and so on. They will provide you with any information you need, and also you can advise about the project issues if you have on the way with the course. Also, here I just want to mention at UX Academy, we are offering 2 flexible payment methods, Noma and Klarna, to make our courses even more accessible and affordable. What I want to say is, if you want to learn more about our payment plans, please go to our website, click About Us, and then go to the payment plans. And before I say thank you all for joining, I just want to mention one of our teachers will join us now to take the lead into this session. Nora is an UX design expert, and she will continue talking about UX and how you can join us and become very successful in your field. Nora, please join us today.
Hey, everyone. Hey, so I'm going to be the teacher for the UX Intermediate course, together with my colleague Gonzalo, who is going to be the mentor. So as Kat already mentioned, Gonzalo is going to be doing the mentoring basically once a week, 30 minutes. He will guide you through the course and offer advice, answer questions, and I'm going to be giving the weekly sessions of 2.5 hours. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the course later, or if you have any questions, you can of course ask them. But now I actually would like to talk a little bit about UX and just give you a little bit of a small taster of what you're going to learn in the course, so you can also see whether it's right for you. So first of all, maybe I should tell you who this intermediate course is actually for. So first of all, I would say it's perfect for people who already have some existing experience in UX. Of course, it's an intermediate course. That means, for example, if you have completed the beginner course with UX Academy, then this is the perfect follow-up for it. Also, if you already have some experience in UX design, whether you've completed a course at a different school, at a boot camp, or for example, you've just worked a little bit in UX. Maybe you have a role that kind of involves a little bit of UX design work, and you really would like to get a better understanding of the whole process. And you just would like to learn advanced user research, fast prototyping, stakeholder management, and so on, and just really get a better idea of the whole process. In general, the course is leaning a little bit more towards the research and strategy side. If you want to learn more about UI design, this is not necessarily a course for you, because this course, it covers the whole UX design process, and UI design, we will not really touch on that in this course, but more a set on research, prototyping, experimentation, and so on. So in that sense, I think we also usually get a lot of students who have maybe the title of UI designer, UX UI designer, so who lean maybe more a little bit towards the visual side, and they really would like to see the whole process and also start with the research and learn more about that and just improve their skills. By the end of the course, what will you be able to do? Here are just some examples. So for example, you will be able to create user journey maps and identify key pain points and opportunities. You will develop fast prototyping skills. You'll be able to create a research plan, implement advanced user research techniques, and analyze research findings. You will develop innovative design thinking to solve problems in a creative and innovative way. You will conduct research and testing within an agile environment. You will develop your software skills in Figma and Miro or FigJam in our case. We in the past we used a lot of Miro. Now we are switching more and more towards FigJam. And you will also present your work to real clients in a professional manner and develop your invaluable communication skills. So basically in this course, what it's really about is to work together with a client throughout the 6 weeks. We are going to teach you the whole process. We are going to give you tips, and then you can also immediately apply them. Now, let's talk a little bit more about UX design itself and what it actually means to think like a UX designer, or just to think like a designer in general. Maybe what I should also add here, in the past, we also had students take the course who are not UX designers. For example, I remember teaching a product designer who was well versed in UX design, but who is doing it not necessarily on a daily basis, but who's of course working together with lots of UX designers and really wanted to improve his skills as well and really understand the whole process better. So thinking like a designer is actually not just something that designers do or should do. So when it comes to think like a designer, first of all, what you need to understand is that you're not an artist. As a designer, you always need to think about 3 components. you need to think about desirability, feasibility, and viability. And in that middle, that's where you find the perfect product, app, idea, whatever you're working on specifically. But you need to consider, on the one hand, what are the needs of the users? What is desirable for the user? You need to consider what is actually technologically feasible. And then you also need to think about the business. So what is actually viable for the business? And this is where a designer sits. This is what you need to think about. So this also leads us into one of the main topics of the course that we're talking about, or that actually gives us the whole structure for the course, which is design thinking. And design thinking, let me just read you here a quote by Tim Brown, the executive chair of IDEO, which is one of the most famous innovation design strategy firms in the world. Design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements for business success. I'll just let that sink in a little bit, but it's basically what I also explained to you, or what you've seen visually on this slide before. When we talk about design thinking, we also need to consider several mindsets that we need to have in order to design something for human-centered design. So when it comes to these type of mindsets, you will find different types of mindsets that you should have depending on the school. So I just want to give you an example of one of the most famous design schools, which is the Institute of Design at Stanford. So for example, they say the mindsets that you should have are show, don't tell, embrace experimentation, be mindful of the process, craft clarity, radical collaboration, bias toward action, and focus on human values. So these type of mindsets, we don't necessarily have the time to go through all of them, but I think a lot of them are also quite self-explanatory. And if you're already familiar with UX design, you will probably see how that fits together. So for example, embrace experimentation. Well, this is something that we of course regularly do in UX design. Probably one of the first things that you learn in a UX design course, an UX beginner course, is that we are not going to start making immediately diving into the colors that we should use for our app. Okay, we're going to pick this color and then we're going to use these icons. No, we're starting just by making a sketch, making a prototype. We're testing it with users. There's this constant process, which is not completely linear, but we are always going back and forth. We're experimenting, we're learning something new, and then we're also putting what we have learned into our design. So as said, I don't have the time to go into all of them, but I think they're also quite self-explanatory. The design thinking ideology asserts that a hands-on, user-centric approach to problem solving can lead to innovation, and innovation can lead to differentiation and a competitive advantage. This hands-on, user-centric approach is defined by the design thinking process and comprises 6 distinct phases. So this is a quote by Sarah Gibbons, the vice president of the Nielsen Norman Group. So this design thinking process is really something that doesn't just apply to UX design, but it's something that can be used for a lot of different wicked problems that we're faced in a business. And this is also, this process, as you can see it here, this is also the process that we structure our course around. So the process in itself might be very familiar to you if you are already familiar a bit with UX design. First, what do? We have the understand phase. We empathize. So we do our research. We try to actually understand what is the problem. We try to empathize with the user. Then we define. So now we actually try to narrow down what do we actually want to work on. And then we go broad again, we ideate. We try to come up with lots of different ideas. And then again, we narrow it again. What do we actually want to prototype? We narrow all of our ideas. We make a prototype and we test, and then in the end we implement. And as I already said, this is of course not a linear process, but as you can also see with all of these arrows, it goes back and forth. And it might also happen that from prototyping, we go back to doing research. From testing, we go back to prototyping, and so on. And this process, as said, is not just used also in UX design by UX designers, but it's also used in service design, in a lot of different disciplines, not even for just people who call themselves designers, but it's really a process for innovation. And it's the backbone of our course. But now let me talk a little bit about some specific tools that we also teach you in the course. So one of the tools that is very important when it comes to empathizing with the user is actually having a user journey map. Maybe quickly let me know in the chat whether you're already familiar with user journey maps. Sometimes they're also called customer journey maps. It's just a different term. Okay, I can see that some people have already used user journey maps before. Someone else is not familiar with them. Cool, thank you for your replies. So as not everyone is familiar with them, let me just give you a quick introduction. And also during the course, we will also focus on best practices. So even if you're already familiar with them, we will also talk about what you should really pay attention to. And maybe you have some questions, you used them in the past and you were unsure about a specific aspect of them. So this is also something that we can really address in the course. Maybe you might already be familiar with some things, but we try to take it to the next level. So a customer user journey map. In this case, I just have a very, very simple image of it. And in the end, how the user journey map looks like, visually, it will very much depend. If you just Google user journey maps, you will find a lot of different visual representations. There is not one single tool that we use to make them. That's very much up to you, to the company, to the circumstances, and so on. But so what does it consist of? So first of all, specific user, scenario, goals. I'll get back to that. Then we have the different phases that the user goes through. And then we have usually also, we write down the opportunities and also the internal ownership of each phase. So let's maybe first talk a little bit about persona, scenario, and goal. So first of all, a persona, that's something that you should already be familiar with. Usually that's something that's also covered in beginner UX design courses, or if you've just been working in the tech industry for any amount of time, you've probably come across personas because they're so well known. But basically a persona is just an idea of like how a group of users is. It's a representation of a group of users. If I now define it very quickly for the people who might not be familiar with it. But so we have the persona. That's the first thing that we need. A user journey map is always tied to a certain persona. And that also means when we make a user journey map, in most cases, we base it on research. So we first do research and then we put together our user journey map. So we try to actually represent the process that a user goes through when he or she is using our product. Or for example, we could also do it without doing research first. And by, for example, if we're at the start of a new project, maybe I would like to get an understanding of what the company already knows about the process. What is the current process? What do they think is the user thinking, feeling, and so on? We try to put that into a user journey map and then we see where we have some gaps and then do more research. That can also be an approach. But I would say most commonly, a user journey map is made after you've done some research. You have the persona linked to the user journey map, the scenario, so that defines when, where, and how the story of the persona takes place. So it's kind of like a narrative. And then we have the goal. So what does the user actually want to accomplish? And then as said, we divide it into different phases, this user journey map, and then put also opportunities where are there opportunities for improvement. And then within the phases, we would also write down, for example, quotes. How does the user feel? What does the user think? This line that you can see here, this could represent the emotions, the emotional journey of the user. And that's, of course, also why we normally do it after we have done some research, and we can even integrate quotes from real users in here. So basically what you need to consider when you make a user journey map is, well, as already said, the scenario, the steps, the tasks, thoughts, emotions, internal ownership, opportunities, and just some of the questions. Why is the user using your product? That's an important question. What are they trying to accomplish? What are the main steps the user goes through to accomplish their task? What are the pain points and opportunities in the experience? What works? How does the user feel? And I can also see a question here, actually, how to determine the number of the phases. In this case, there's not one answer. You will always have several phases, but this will really depend on the individual case. So it depends on your scenario. What scenario do you have? What goal do you have? In general, what you could think of, there's probably some phase where the user is faced with a problem, then maybe discovers your product, your solution, then does something with it, and then accomplishes the goal, but there's not necessarily one specific number. And first, if you struggle with this, just try to write down the information that you have. Maybe if you can't define the phases first, just first write down what are the different steps. And then maybe you understand, oh, these two steps, they actually fit together. These two tasks and so on, they fit together. That could actually be part of the same phase. So yeah, these are basically customer user journey maps. And that's something we're also going to cover more in depth in this course. And maybe also, why would we actually use these user journey maps? That's, I think, the most important question to answer here. So first of all, we use user journey maps because they can really summarize the information that we have gathered from research in a visual way. And as you know, usually people can remember information way better when it's presented visually, nicely in this format than if we just gave them a long report. So it's a memorable, concise, and visual reference of the user journey that if you work in a physical office, you can also just put up on the wall and people can always check it again. In that sense, it's also a very good way for all of the people in the team to empathize with the user and understand their feelings, motivations, and experiences. And also, normally, you wouldn't make the user journey map on your own. So this is really talking about best practices. Don't make the user journey map on your own, but make it as a workshop. Invite people from the team. And as said, there is even the possibility to make the user journey map at the beginning of a project. That can be a possibility. So make the user journey map with a team so that you can actually get a shared vision and understanding of the user journey for the whole team. And maybe you even get contributions from team members about things that you didn't know yet. And again, it also helps with the learning process. So overall, maybe this also just links back again to the question that Carbon Warrior had, how to determine the number of phases. Set a clear objective. Why are you actually creating this map in the first place? What is your goal? And maybe something you should always think about when designing in your work. If you don't know what their problems are, how would you know you've solved them? This is really something. Try to keep this in mind. Of course, this is also why we really have a strong focus on research in this course, because this is often also where we see some junior designers lack experience. You really need ways to understand what the problems of the users are, so that you actually know whether your solutions, your ideas, your prototype, whether they actually solve their problems. So now let's talk a little bit about how to bring your idea to life. So you have an idea, we have done our research, right? Like, you remember like the different stages of the design thinking process. So we have done our research, we have our problem statement, and now we have come up with lots of different ideas. So usually something that we use is a storyboard. So this is just a visual way of kind of thinking through the problem, again, thinking through things that we learned in our research. So we would kind of write down, okay, this is the problem, and make it a little bit visual. And this can just be a way to, before we actually start prototyping, already think about, okay, what do we need? What is the problem? Like, kind of we don't do a complete user journey, but we just start already brainstorming on like what kind of prototype you would maybe want to make. So this is like the first step. And then once you have your prototype, and again, this is something, maybe for some people it might be quite basic, but I'll just repeat it because it's so important. Once you actually want to test your assumptions, don't immediately start making a prototype with colors, with all the little bits and pieces that you might not actually need. But we are going to make a simple prototype, and we're going to test our assumptions. Don't waste too much time on actually making this first prototype. And we actually want to make an experiment and really try to understand whether the idea that we have resonates. So usually what people learn in beginner courses, in boot camps and so on, is how to do usability tests. So this is actually also something that I see mentioned in the comments. So Lee just mentioned that he conducts usability tests on the current product and feature. So usability tests are definitely super, super helpful when it comes to actually understanding whether a product is usable, whether we need to improve something, whether they can actually find the function and use it in the way that it's intended. However, even before that, often we want to understand whether something is actually useful, whether something is actually needed. We have, especially either in a startup context, or maybe when a company wants to launch a completely new product, a completely new feature, we actually first want to do a test and just see whether the users need it. So here we do experiments. And just like you've seen also in the previous slide, how to test your assumptions, we try to come up with assumptions. What do we actually want to test? And make our small prototype and test them. There are a lot of different ways how we can test our assumptions. And for example, we have low fidelity tests. So observing people using a sketch, a clickable prototype. We have a fake door test. We have a concierge Wizard of Oz test, or also a longitudinal test. I'm quickly going to talk about the fake door test, the concierge Wizard of Oz test. Again, in this presentation, I can't cover all of them, but there are different ways how you can also make an experiment and just see whether the new product, the new feature that you want to introduce, whether that's actually not just usable, but also useful and will actually be used by users. So here are some experiments that you can also run. Of course, as you can see, something like a low fidelity test is very fast, but it also doesn't give us a lot of confidence in our findings. While something like a longitudinal study, a diary study, for example, gives us high confidence in our findings. So how do we test assumptions in user research? You should already be familiar with this circle here. Continuous iteration. We build, we share, we test, we learn, and iterate. Always going around, right? It's not a line. But first, we would identify our key assumptions, what we believe about our customers, but we don't have data to support this. And it must be true for the success of the solution. This is the first step when we want to set up an experiment. And then we want to validate our assumptions. We write a hypothesis. If we do this, then people are going to exhibit a desired behavior. And then we create a prototype that allows us to test the hypothesis and run the experiment. And of course, as we are not in an academic context, we are not doing research just for research's sake. But we, again, coming back to the beginning of this presentation, we also need to think about what is actually viable for our business. So we first want to test assumptions that are high risk and are uncertain. So things where we really don't know much about. And if this assumption is not true, the business would lose a lot of money, for example. So just to maybe take an example that probably everyone is familiar with, think of the Tesla. Actually developing something like the Tesla, well, this is very, very, very expensive. So there's high risk associated with it. So we do kind of want to know whether this is actually something people would buy. Very simple example. But yeah, just to show you two ways how we can actually test assumptions. First of all, we have the fake door test. So this is a lean research technique product teams use to validate new products, features, or services. Maybe you've been on Facebook and at some point clicked on a new button that you saw somewhere, and it said, sorry, this feature isn't available right now. An error occurred while processing this request. Please try again later. So of course, maybe it was really an error, but this could actually also be a fake door test. So basically, Facebook, let's just presume that in this case it was a fake door test. Facebook wanted to gather some information on whether people might actually be interested in having a certain feature. So they could, of course, develop the feature and put it there, but that is going to cost a lot of money to develop this new feature. So instead, we can just put this fake button. Like, let's say, okay, the marketplace has been around for many years, but let's say they were thinking about actually having a marketplace. Okay, we just, instead of developing the whole marketplace, we just put a button and see if people actually click on it, are they curious about it, and so on. So it's basically could be a call to action. It can also just be a low fidelity prototype. But yeah, it's basically a fake door test, as it's called. And it's just a way to understand whether people might be interested in something. Then we have the Concierge or Wizard of Oz test. So there's a small difference between the two. I'm not really going to go into it now, but this is basically a method that or a process that allows a user to interact with an interface without knowing that the response are being generated by humans rather than a computer, by having someone behind the scenes who is pulling the levers and flipping the switches. So one of the examples I love of a Wizard of Oz test is, well, we want to understand whether people would actually want to have a listening typewriter. Do they want to have speech recognition? So developing speech recognition is something that would take a lot of time, right? So is that actually something that people would find useful? Well, one way to test it is we just put a microphone and we set up a test, as you can see it, Dear Henry. And then we have someone hidden behind the scenes who is actually typing everything that the person says. And in this case, the person is not aware of that person and thinks it's really the computer doing this. So here we really get some feedback on whether that would be interesting to users or not. Now, just to come back a little bit to the structure of our course. As I told you, it's basically structured around design thinking, or design thinking is the backbone of our course. So week 1, we're going to talk about empathizing with the user. Then week 2, define. Week 3, ideate. Week 4, prototype. Week 5, test. And then week 6, well, we're not immediately going to implement it, but you're going to present your solution to the client, and with a little bit of luck, it will actually even be implemented, what you develop. So I already mentioned it, but just to go a little bit more in detail. So I would say one of the main advantages of the courses at UX Academy is that you actually get to work with a client. Why is this useful? Well, I mean, first of all, this is what you, of course, also have to do later in your workplace. You work with a real client, you work together with a company. So these type of projects, having a client project in your portfolio is always more valuable than just having some kind of invented project. Then, of course, having a client project, so working together with a client throughout the course, also allows you to immediately apply the knowledge that you learn in class. So you learn something in our class during the 2.5 hours that we have together, and then immediately in that week you're going to implement it because you will get homework. That's maybe also something I should just mention. There is some homework. So it's not just 2.5 hours just leaning back, listening to me, but we also expect some participation within the class, asking questions and so on. And then there's some homework where you will actually work on your project, the project for the client, and then you have again the next class. And it's always linked together. So I think this is pretty much everything I should say about the client project. And as I said, at the end, you will have a student presentation. You will present your project to the client, and we will also give you tips on how to present it well. But yeah, if you have any questions, of course, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Nora, so much for this. Okay, so I see we already started with some questions, but before we go to the Q&A, I just want to do a bit of a recap of what we spoke tonight. And just to mention, our courses are 100% live and usually in the evenings. As you could see how Nora speak, that's usually how the courses are going. At the end, you get a certificate, you work at the real client projects, and as well, our teachers have a lot of experience, so you can advise about anything, plus the mentorship, which is very important. And also we offer 2 flexible payments. Now, I just want to mention one thing before we go with the Q&A. I saw in the comments that we have a question: what is the price of the course? And thank you very much for asking that question. I just want to say that for every early application, the course intermediate UX design course starts on the 14th of February. And for any early applications, we're offering 15% discount. You can use the special discount code FEBwebinar15, and you will get the 15 discount deducted from the price. You can check it on the website, it would be valid. And as well, what I want to mention, we're usually every month, 2 times a month or once, we have different types of webinar. On the 24th of February, we will have another one, all on the information about the webinar, the courses, and necessary details about ourselves, the UX Academy. You can check on our website, myuxacademy.com, and you can learn more about the upcoming webinars, the upcoming courses. You can consult with us, send us a message at any time about anything you need, especially when it's about the discount or the start of the course or any information. And right now we can start with the questions. Nora, I hope you're ready. So I see we have 2 questions so far, so please send us any questions you have and we can start reviewing them. Nora, you should take the lead now.
So is the fake door test a strong indicator that you should develop that feature? Won't a lot of users just click on it just because of novelty? Yes, definitely. This is definitely not a test that has a super high confidence. So I could also go back to the slide. 1 sec. Here. This is a little bit the issue, right? Like tests that are very fast to implement, normally they also are associated with low confidence. So it can definitely happen that it just shows that people are kind of curious about it, but maybe they're not going to use it. However, a fake door test could be also more than just a button. Maybe we just make a simple prototype. We just need to be aware of it. In some cases, it might be enough. In some other cases, maybe not. We need to maybe do or combine it with a different test.
Okay, we have a next one, which is interesting.
Does everyone get the same client project? Yes, everyone gets the same client project, but especially the intermediate UX design course, it's usually, well, a smaller group of students. So at most we are, I would say normally we are working in 2 teams. And then sometimes it happens that, so for example, in the past we had a client that had a job platform. So you were working with the same client, but one group was working on the side of the job seekers and the other client was working on the side of the employers. So that sometimes happens, but yeah, it's the same client in this case.
Perfect. And then we have another one from the same person, which is great. Thank you for asking.
So in About the Wizard of Oz test, doesn't that involve a bit of resources? Yes, the Wizard of Oz test does take some time to set up. Of course, it depends really on what you want to test, but especially if you want to develop something like, well, like in the example that I showed you, should we go into speech recognition, something like that, something related to AI, it is worth actually investing the resources on first testing it in this Wizard of Oz or concierge test scenario, then immediately going into developing it, because that requires even more resources.
Great. And we have one more question.
So would there be access to the client for the purpose of stakeholder interviews or similar? So yes, so you will be working together with the client. You are going to be the ones speaking with the client. Of course, we select the client for you. We take care of the initial communication. But then, so for example, in week 1, we are going to talk about how to do a good stakeholder interview. So when you start off a new project, what do you actually need to do? And how do you structure an interview? And then afterwards, you will then talk to the client and do the stakeholder interview yourself. So again, you will learn something in class and you will immediately apply it.
Great. And we have another question from Lee.
So the project, is it always a group project? Yes, it's always a group project. Just like in real life, normally as a UX designer, you normally work in a team. Even if you are the only UX designer in your company, which could be the case, for example, if you work for a startup, you usually still work together with a product manager, with a developer, and so on. So that's also why we are working in teams. How many members would typically be on a team? I would say between 3 and 4 is normally what we have. Yeah.
And you have a great message saying thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to ask, does anyone else have more questions? Feel free to ask. We have time to answer them, and let us know any other questions. Okay, people are saying thank you. So Nora, you're amazing. Thank you so much. As you can see here, as Nora answered the questions, this is how our courses are typically going. You have the freedom to ask any questions you need to get your knowledge, to learn things. When it comes to the mentorship, you can also ask the same questions to your mentor and as well to the clients. They will be more than helpful to assist you in any type of communication, especially when working on the project. Just to add one more time, don't forget to look into our website, myuxacademy.com. Right now, intermediate UX design course is coming soon. So it is a great opportunity to use our discount code, FebWebinar15. It will give you 15% discount. And as well, we are hoping to see you in our future webinars and as well to become one of our students. If anyone has more questions, we'll be here for a couple more minutes. And so feel free to ask.
I just saw 2 more questions. So is there
Sure.
any training provided, in relation to prototyping software towards the end, Figma, Adobe? So normally, as this is an intermediate course, we expect you to already know a bit of prototyping so that you've already worked with the prototyping software in the past. In our course, we use Figma, but I would say even if people only used Adobe XD in the past, it's pretty simple to just switch from Adobe XD to Figma. It's very, very similar. So we don't do specific training in the prototyping software. We will provide you with some resources should it be necessary. And of course, you can ask questions, but it's less on a course. It's not really a course to teach you how to use it because, as I said, it's an intermediate UX design course. I just saw a comment that we had earlier actually includes 2 questions. So what's the price of the course? I mean, as I said, I think Kat already answered this question, and as I said, also just check out our website. But would the course help us to get an internship or job? So maybe let me answer this question. So first of all, I would say, what do you need to get an internship or job? First of all, you need to have a portfolio. This is one of the first requirements. So, even for an internship, I would say you would normally need to show at least something. So in this case, this course also really helps you very practically to build your portfolio. And as I already mentioned beforehand, this course actually helps you to work together with a client, and in the end, you will get a real client project on your portfolio, which is normally seen as more worth something than just working on like an invented project on your own. So they can actually see, okay, you know how to work with a client, stakeholder management, and you also know how to work in a team. And you also increased your knowledge. So having this course, this course at UX Academy on your CV will also help you, of course, to find a job or an internship.
That is great. Also, what I want to add, one more thing, we have a new kind of like a session, not the session, but I would say course and the internship program as well available. So we have UX UI design bootcamp and the internship. You can check it out on our website. It will give you kind of like the overview of the everything you need, including the internship program. And Nora, we have one more question, so you can start.
Thank you. So what do you think is UX or design thinking's current trend or adoption in South Asian countries, particular sector that is most likely to adopt design thinking service? Okay, so I live in Europe. I've only been traveling a bit in South Asia. I haven't worked in South Asia yet. So I can't really speak so much about current trends and the adoption in South Asian countries. Full disclaimer. But maybe we should also just explain UX versus design thinking a little bit more. So design thinking is a broader approach for innovation. So design thinking is not just something that is used within UX design or also applies to UX design, but design thinking can also be used for services, for example, for just general innovation, like a company needs to innovate their business model, their product range, and so on. This is what you use design thinking for. It's often also used to solve a wicked problem, as we call it. So design thinking is a lot broader, and what you do in the end doesn't always have to be very digital. As I said, it's also used for service design. So it depends also a little bit, Doma, it depends a little bit on your personal profile and what you're more interested in. But design thinking is really something wider. And I would say a lot of people can benefit from just learning more about design thinking, not just UX designers. Design thinking is something I think that also business managers should know about, product managers, and so on. It's really helpful for a lot of different people. And then UX is, of course, a little bit, I don't want to say more niche because it's a very vast field, but it is, of course, a little bit more specific in that sense.
Great. We got one more question.
Will there be industry-related UX UI talks? In this case, I'm not 100% sure if I understand your question. So industry-related UX UI design talks, maybe you can tell me a little bit more what you mean. So the class will be delivered just by me. And I mean, I hope to present the most relevant information on UX design. But yeah, maybe let me know. Can you specify your question a little bit?
Let us check. Well, we can just add that when they work on the real client project, they communicate directly with the industry and they communicate directly with clients, so that can kind of help. And as well, they have the mentorship program, so they can as well communicate with the mentor who works directly in the UX industry. So in that case, they win both ways. Here is the addition to the
people who are working on logistics industry tend to be more. So, I mean, of course, the insights that you get will also depend on the instructors of the course. I would say one advantage also is that, I mean, Gonzalo and I have been teaching this course now for 4, 5, 6 times by now. I don't even remember, but our profile is very, very different. Let me just go back. Yeah, so Gonzalo, well, he is a senior UX designer, and his profile, the companies that he has worked at, is very different from my profile. So I would say you definitely also get insights from different angles by like just talking to me, by asking me some questions, or also asking Gonzalo questions during the mentoring session. So I would say, I don't know if Gonzalo has worked in the logistics industry. I haven't, but yeah, I hope this answered your question.
And here is another one.
Is it easier for graphic designer to become a UX designer? Yes and no. So, I mean, on the one hand, you definitely have an advantage because you know visual design, you know graphic design. So, and part of UX design is, of course, very visual. And this is, think about it, UX design is this very big field, and one part of it is UI design. So I'm personally also always a bit critical of the term UX/UI design because it kind of implies that it's, I don't know, one or the other, or like there's this thing, but UI design is a part of the bigger UX design field. So, and when it comes to UI design, because of your visual design skills, you of course have an easier time also learning UI design as a graphic designer. And I would say also on YouTube, I found, like, I personally don't have a graphic design background actually. I come rather from social sciences. So for me, it was easier to get into research. But for graphic designer, it's usually easier to kind of get into UI design and then slowly also build their knowledge when it comes to the strategic skills, the research skills, and so on. So yes, but it also always depends on how exactly you would position yourself. And you might need to learn more about doing research strategy, stakeholder management, presentation skills, also all that kind of stuff.
That is perfect. And just for the end, just to show, we have people that are very happy with our session. And I just want to thank you all for joining. Because we have no more questions, I think, Nora, we can finish this presentation. Hope everyone liked it. In case you have, here is another one. Thank you so much. I just want to say, in case you have any questions, feel free to reach us anywhere. You can follow our social medias. You can follow us. Basically, you can contact us directly through the website. Make sure just to prepare the questions. We're here for anything you need. Nora is there to teach you more. Just reach us, and we're hoping to see you soon, either on our course or on our next webinar. Thank you, Nora, so much. And thank you, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you.